This week's episode, what's new at CES 2022? Don't look up now, but there's a new #1 on Netflix. And what's up with the Hutt twins for Boba Fett? All this and more as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse. I gotta always wait and hesitate for your laughs, but I tried once doing that through your laughs, but then it just didn't flow in post. But yes,
oh gosh,
no worries, no worries. Always good to hear that at least affects somebody out there. But
right.
and we're back. Oh, and we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. This is a very jolly Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify podcasts because they now do stars ratings. Yeah, that's right.
Crazy.
Vampire and Vitae, 5 stars, 5
Yes.
stars.
Oh my gosh, all the stars.
Plus, if you can like, support, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports, Fantasy Football, Game Source, the Lakers Fast Break, Vampires and Vitae, popculturecosmos.com, or anything that we do here at the Pop Culture Cosmos, because we are the #1 tabletop RPG streamer on Facebook, and we bring you the latest news and trends in pop culture every single day at Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook. And if you can support all these great things that we do all week long, it is sincerely appreciated. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my good friend. She is a very jolly person indeed that you got to go ahead and catch each and every time now out when there concerns the Vampires and Vitae, the world of Vampires and Vitae. You got to go ahead and catch her today there, plus all the things that she does on Pop Culture Cosmos, all the games that she runs, including Tuesday, because, you know, she says she lets her husband Robbie run that show. But we all know the truth that she runs that, plus her games as well, Warlocks and Whiskey, and also as well Wizards and Wine. It is a great person indeed. She is here late at night talking to me about pop culture. It is Melinda Barkhouse Ross. And Melinda, thank you for your patience. Good to have you back on the radio. It's been a little bit away from us. We took some time off. I did some episodes in advance, but I wish you and Robbie a happy new year, and so glad to have you back on the seat again.
Definitely. Happy New Year to you as well.
Yes, we're in the hot seats right now, so there you go. Prepare for another great episode indeed. It is going to be a good one. We're going to be talking about a lot of great things, but I also want to mention that on the back half of the show, you're the former host, the person that sat in the hot seat before you.
Oh my goodness.
Marcus De La Garza is actually going to be on the back end of the show talking about the Expanse Season 6 because he's a humongous Expanse fan. If you've been listening to the show for a while and you were here during the time he was hosting the show for a year, you know he loves Expanse. So how has Season 6 been going for him? He'll explain if it's been good or a bad situation going on with the Expanse as it closes out its final season on Amazon Prime. Plus, is there a future for the Expanse? And could there be a video game in the offering as well? We'll talk about that coming up on the show. Plus, Melinda and I on the back end will also talk about the successes currently on Netflix. Because don't look up now, but Don't Look Up is getting huge numbers on Netflix. And also, Cobra Kai is striking fast and striking hard and showing no mercy to Netflix viewers. How much? We'll talk about both these great programs coming up on the back end of the show as well. Plus, I'm going to be talking about my time in limited fashion, of course, with all that's going on with the Omicron and coronavirus and all that, about CES 2022. I'll talk about some of the most interesting things that I've discovered and the usual stuff that I've been sent. I'll talk about that coming up here in a bit because it gets a little bit funny, a little bit offbeat. And some of the things that I am emailed in regards to what they want me to cover is certainly a little bit on the strange side. So we'll talk about that coming up on the show as well. But first, Melinda, before we talk about the Book of Boba Fett,
Yes.
it is Morbius, which I think went a little bit under the radar. It was supposed to be coming out this time next week.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Mr. Jared Leto, who just turned 50 and was showing off, his physique, and everybody was going, man, he's 50. I can't believe that. Well, you know what? He is also showing off his physique in the upcoming movie Morbius, but it got delayed to April 1st right now. So it's going to be an April Fool's joke for everyone out there.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty obvious that they had to do that. I think after you see this weekend the numbers at the 355 posts, I think it would probably be strongly recommended that they should have done that too. But right now, Morbius, I think, especially with the fact that Spider-Man No Way Home has been such a huge success, now over $1.4 billion worldwide in its earnings. I think Sony just had really just no choice with what's going on, the uncertain future right now for the theater industry, to just say, you know what, we're just going to chill Morbius out for 3 months more and see what happens from there.
Yeah, a smart move probably. As long as they're not doing it to like recut the film, which I don't think that they are, right? It's just solely because they were reworking release dates and stuff, right?
I think they're just fearful because of Omicron. I think that's probably the big number. I don't think they were recutting the film. I think it tested, from what I'm hearing, okay, but I don't know. They're not. I mean, if they're worried about a bad film, they would have never put out the Venom movies, because the Venom movies, both of them, have gotten raked over the coals, but they've still gotten hundreds of millions of dollars in box office profit.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I don't think Sony's too worried about how bad or good this movie is. I just think that they were scared because, if you follow a movie, even in times when it's not been the coronavirus, in January is one of the slowest months of the year for the movie industry.
Yeah.
And usually if a movie comes out in January, it's usually sent there because they couldn't find another place on the schedule for it. And they're usually sent to die because they have very little faith in the movie, which I'm very sad about when it comes to the 355, because it looked like it was going to be a decent movie, but they basically sent it to die, unfortunately, at the theaters. It's not going to get a big return on its investment. And I'm very sad to see that, because I think it deserves a whole lot better. But when it comes to Morbius, I think Morbius, they put it there, or got moved there originally because of the fact of everything else in the Marvel Cinematic Universe was being bumped back. I think that they just said right now, with Doctor Strange being moved to May from its original, I think, February start date.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best thing for them. So yeah.
If that seems to be going around right now for the movies, then then I'm not surprised, and I'm not concerned. I am still very excited to go see this movie. I can't wait to see it. I think it's going to be great, and it's just kind of a bummer now that I've got to wait till April.
I know you, and from what I hear, a lot of other people, they were really excited to see this movie, but
What a bummer.
I think it's smart for them, because again, I thought it was kind of weird that they put it in January in the first place, because again, January is usually a time where people don't flock to the movies. There's been very few January movie hits out there, and if they have been, most of them have been like leftovers from the holiday season, i.e. like Spider-Man No Way Home,
Right.
which in fact it would probably be competing with, had it come out originally this next week. So I'm going to say right now it's a pretty good move. I think it was solid. Plus the uncertainty of Omicron and how everybody's kind of worried about going to anywhere, like a theater, for instance, or going to shopping malls, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, people just be safe and healthy out there. But I think it was a good move. I think ultimately we will still see what's going on and how he figures into all the Spider-Verse. And that's the thing, because he wasn't part of the Sinister Five in No Way Home. Spoilers out there for everyone.
Right.
But he's part of the new collection, or another collection of villains that are going to be terrorizing Spider-Man, I'm assuming, at some point in time. So it's going to be interesting to see how Morbius and Kraven the Hunter, when that movie finally comes out, seeing what that comes. Maybe Black Cat, we're going to see hopefully something with her at some point in time, and seeing how they're going to expand this universe. So I'm interested to see how Sony is going to go ahead and expand it, because they're not giving this license back to Marvel anytime soon.
Yeah.
They like the money. They like the whole lot of money that Spider-Man is making. So
yeah,
I see that the Spider-Verse is going to continue on for quite some time.
Yeah. There's not going to be much of an end to that, I don't think. We'll finally get over comic book movies when people just stop going to see them. And I think that there's something that we've loved about those stories for so long. And they're those classic reliable stories, and I don't think that we ever get tired of those. So I think that the comic book movies are going to be around for quite a while.
I think so as well. I think there was a point in time in the early 2000s where some pretty underwhelming movies came out around that time. I think one of the Hulks came out at that time. You had Daredevil, you had Elektra. Nothing was really lighting up the screen and trying to getting a big return off of it, both critically or popularity wise. I think that once Batman Begins came out, I think that's what sparked the interest once again in fans going to check out superhero movies, because it showed that you could really tell a strong narrative, which it did over the course of its 3 films. And obviously went from there to the Marvel movies and what have you. Now we have the TV shows and the whole 9 yards. So it's something that we're going to now continue to see. And I know there are people that are turned off by it, but Morbius is going to be something I think that will be a nice mix into everything. And it delves into a world with vampires, vampires and vitae, that I think you'll enjoy. Can't wait for Blade. Now that we've had an introduction to Blade in the end credit scene for the Eternals, which is coming out on the 12th, just to give everybody a heads up. So next week, you'll be able to see it on Disney Plus for the Eternals. So if you missed it in the theaters, then you can go ahead and check it out pretty soon at Disney Plus. So, and see what I'm talking about when it comes to Blade. So the the Spider-Verse and the MCU will both have some vampires right around the corner. Looks good.
Because they're the coolest, man.
So I hear and see every week right there at Vampires and Vitae.
Oh, you're such a dork. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
Well, there you go. No, hey, got a shill for that great show that you have. So if you have something good and be proud of it, there you go. Absolutely. If you have something good and you're proud of it, go ahead. Sell it all the way you can.
Yeah.
But it is Morbius. It's been delayed to April. What are your thoughts? Are you really disappointed, like Melinda, that it is not coming out this next week? Or can you go ahead and be okay with the fact that the tale of Morbius and this whole vampire type deal, as far as the blood-sucking Morbius that he is going to be coming out in not too distant future, but you're still excited to see it? Or are you excited to see an expansion of the Spider-Verse with Morbius? Please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, before we hit the break, I wanted to go ahead and ask you real quick, Melinda, in regards to the Book of Boba Fett, episode 2. We're up to right now. I know you're still catching up on things when concerns the Book of Boba Fett.
Yes.
For the most part, the episodes, because I think they were going to have only a 4-episode arc, and now they've stretched out to 7. I think the fact that's part of the reason why that they're delving most of the episodes in the past. Spoilers again to everybody out there.
Right.
They're touching on a little bit as far as what's in his present in regards to him trying to gain control of the Mos Eisley territories and the Tatooine territories that he has.
Right.
That was the Jabba the Hutt's old stomping grounds. And now Jabba the Hutt's cousins, the Hutt's twins, which were very interesting, provide a new adversary, and because they're trying to lay claim to the same territory that Boba Fett is, so they had a little standoff. Didn't amount to much, except for the fact that everybody's freaking out that a black Wookiee is there and looking very menacing. A dark-colored Wookiee is there and looking very menacing there. So I think a lot of people were freaked out by him, because he's actually, this particular Wookiee, this bounty hunter Wookiee, is actually part of the Star Wars lore previously. So I think a lot of people were really excited to see him being introduced as someone who's working with the twin Hutts, as you can say, brother and sister. Right. It's just so really funny to see one of the Hutts, the brother Hutt, is talking to Boba Fett while he's got this like live rodent still just dangling close to his mouth. You know he's going to eat it at some point in time, but he doesn't actually on screen. but he's still holding in his hands like it's, like I'd hold a cheeseburger. It just like it's just squirming all around. It's just like, hey, I'm gonna eat you eventually. Don't worry, I'll catch up to you. He's just like around this. He's using it on his head, and it's just like that wiping the sweat. And it's like so weird how they did that, but it's gonna end up in his belly at some point in time. Get in my belly. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how that portrays out as far as the Hutts are concerned and what kind of adversaries they will be, because this is again a series based off of him trying to gain control of the underground of Tatooine and the criminal underground that it is. But I want to hear your thoughts on this. Most of the show was dedicated once again to his backstory about what happened after he got out the Sarlacc pit and his development with the Tusken Raiders, which included a time where he helped the Tusken Raiders in this episode gain powerful, he gained more prominence within the tribe, and he helped the tribe overcome adversity by actually train robbing per se. It's actually robbed a spice train,
right,
in order that was terrorizing them on their pass-throughs and actually causing a lot of pain and grief and carnage to the Tusken Raiders. I want to ask you, when you finally catch up to the Book of Boba Fett, are you excited to see more about the Tusken Raiders? As I spoke to people out there, a lot of them said, I really didn't care about the Tusken Raiders, and I really didn't want to know more about them. But is a deeper delve into the world of the Tusken Raiders something you wish to see?
I don't know. I think I'm more curious about the twins.
Okay, but please don't. Well, I'm sure you're going to see a lot more of them in coming episodes.
Yeah.
But please don't ask me to do any Tusken Raider sound. That's hard to do. That's hard to do, by the way.
Oh no. Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat with everybody else.
Didn't know you need to know that much about the Tusken Raiders.
Yeah, had no idea. And now it's just like, well, I guess that lives in my brain somewhere.
Yeah, but he actually becomes part of the tribe, which I'm assuming is going to be something that's going to be a callback later in the series.
Sure.
When he's going to need their help at some point in time. But the obvious references to Dune and the influence originally that George Lucas had from Frank Herbert's Dune is there, because not only just because the fact that it takes place in Tatooine, which is very similar to the desert planets that were the desert planet exemplified in Frank Herbert's Dune, but the fact that spice in this case was such a integral part of the story arc in this episode as far as what they were after in the spice train. So I can see the influence there that George Lucas has, and it's been mentioned by him. But you think George Lucas might have been happy about all these Dune references in this episode and how this has evolved beyond what he originally, I think, conceived? So I don't think even he conceived that much about the Tusken Raiders and all this going on in Tatooine.
Well, I think that he would have appreciated the inclusion of all of the, the sidebar Dune references and influences that were so prominent. I think he would appreciate it, to be honest. If that's, a piece of the inspiration that he had, then of course, why wouldn't you want to have that more in the forefront?
And most of the 2 episodes deals with a lot of the past that happened right after he got off the Sarlacc pit, after the events of Return of the Jedi, but not in his present.
Right.
It's in order to obviously set up for what's to come. But are you okay with that? I mean, as far as if you watching through, I mean, is that something you're going to be okay with, watching through and seeing most of the stuff taking place in the past tense?
Yeah, I like it actually when shows do that. And I'm going to use this term, and I know that I'm using it kind of incorrectly because I know it's not 100%, but like that, it seems like a very Tarantino thing to do, to flash back and then come back to the present, and then flash back and then come back to the present, almost telling a story backwards, I suppose, is how you could look at it.
Well, there you go. I mean, it isn't Tarantino dealing with it, but it is Robert Rodriguez directing these episodes and actually playing characters in both episodes. Different characters in the first 2 episodes he's played. So we'll see how many more characters he can play.
Yeah, that certainly makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez and Mr. Tarantino
Yes,
mean,
and well, John Favreau is writing this, so
yeah.
it's all this
Oh,
interesting
jeez.
combination. It's
Yeah.
very interesting indeed how this is being all set up. But it is Robert Rodriguez directing this,
I
and
didn't realize
basically
he
the
was
show.
directing it. I'm
Yeah,
I'm even more excited.
well, he's the showrunner for this, and after he did such a great job in one of the episodes of The Mandalorian, he was, I guess, presented with this, and obviously he's done a good job. I mean, this episode is much better than the first episode. It provides a lot more action. It provides a lot more interest. And at the very end, he becomes a member of the tribe of this particular Tusken Raiders tribe. So seeing him as a Tusken Raider, i.e. Boba Fett, as a Tusken Raider at the very end was a nice little touch there. So he's an honorary member of the Tusken Raiders going forward at that point in time. So seeing how this series is going to end up, I'm very curious. Like again, for me, it was a slow burn. Episode 1 was a slow burn, but episode 2, things picked up. So I'm looking forward to what I'm seeing from the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, and to be fair too, I am seeing a lot of people who don't usually talk about geek stuff online. I'm seeing a lot of Facebook posts about, I'm surprised. I actually really enjoy this. So, it is attracting people who aren't typical viewers of this genre as well.
And I will say that reports are that it debuted about 10% higher than Hawkeye, which I know we were talking about previously about how Hawkeye didn't get off the best of notes when it comes to ratings, but it seemed to hold and actually increase its audience over the time it was out. So
Right.
I'm hoping that Book of Boba Fett will do the same. So we'll see what happens with this particular Disney Plus series. But if you have thoughts on the Book of Boba Fett as we head into episode 3, do you like the fact that the Tusken Raiders have become such an integral part of the story? Okay, I'll do that sound again. There you go. That's the best I can do.
Oh gosh.
But if you have thoughts on the first 2 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett, we'd love to hear them. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, before we hit the break, the half hour, I wanted to go ahead and tell you I stopped by CES for a very short period of time, not my usual days and days on end there.
Right.
Because of what's going on with the Omicron and the coronavirus, I kind of just made a very limited appearance in this year, but I've been keeping up on everything that was announced, keeping up on anything I can go ahead and get my hands on that concerns all the press releases sent to me and virtual press conferences, because over a third, I think, of these intended individuals that were going to represent individual companies that were going to represent things pulled out within the past 2 weeks. So it was still 2,000 companies that were there, but it was still going to be a lot more that were there initially. Like a lot of the big ones like Microsoft and others pulled out of the CES this year. So it was sad to see that, but obviously I can't blame them. It was limited this year, but it's still got a number of announcements that I wanted to go ahead and touch on. The first thing that we touch on here, and I actually share this a lot on Pop Culture Cosmos and also Game Source on Facebook, is the arcade battle, the home arcade battle. And I think right now the leader in the clubhouse is Arcade 1-Up, and has been since they actually introduced a lower priced line of arcade machines. In fact, you can see it in the corner of my room right here, or my office. You can see what I'm talking about. Yes. So that's my Final Fight right there that I bought originally a couple of years ago. And what they introduced this year, and one of their main competitors, II Arcade, who I've interviewed on the show a couple times, and John, the head of II Arcade, has been such a tremendous interview, and I cannot thank enough for always stopping by when I'm asking and when I'm inquiring. But yeah, he's done a great job on this show, but he's been trying to catch up with Arcade 1-Up has had to offer, because they've exploded from the time that I originally bought that. They now have dozens and dozens of Arcade 1-Ups that they've introduced over the course of the past few years. And they've actually expanded upon that into infinity board gaming tables, that you can download all the games on. In fact, they announced a Harry Potter chess for that specifically. But you can, downloading different D&D elements, just for let you know as well. They're working with Roll20, working with Hasbro and things of that nature for their Infinity game table. But their main bread and butter has been the arcades and the home arcades that they've tried to go ahead and sell over the course of the past few years. And I know that they announced that they've sold 3 million of bad
Wow.
boys like these, to give you an idea of how big the home arcade experience is. One thing they did this year, though, didn't announce a lot of anything new titles and new IPs that they go ahead will introduce, and neither did Arcade. What they did was kind of like make a lateral turn, and they announced that they're both putting out Premier or Pro Series units. And what I mean by that is, you see the one that's right behind me, and that one right there. If you were to stand next to it, they're still not too big, not too tall,
Right.
and also they're not very well constructed. There's most particle boards, and
Sure.
it's made obviously with the thought of being at a low cost alternative in mind.
Yeah.
And you have to usually buy a separate stand in order for it to get to a decent height. Well, right now, that what they did during the course of CES is they both announced, both companies, iArcade and Arcade One Up, announced premier units, which are going to be at or near the size of the standard arcade machines that you would see in a regular arcade.
Wow.
Right now the selections are few. One of them is coming out, Arcade One Up, with a Killer Instinct console, and the other one, iArcade, is coming out with a Dead Cells themed console. Both of them are going to have Wi-Fi. They be connected to be able to download other games, things of that nature. Have on leaderboards, things like that. Especially with iArcade, which you could download a lot of games already for the unit for an additional price. The only thing is, the units themselves, like that right now, I have in mind, it's roughly valued, I think, around $300 to $400 is what
Okay.
they usually, the brand new units. Let's say a new title, like for instance, Tron, the arcade game Tron came out over the holiday period. That version, I think, came around $400. I know a 4-player version, like a new versions of the Simpsons 4-player for Arcade One Up, came out as around $500.
Okay.
Now they're talking about the Pro units, which are going to be similar in size. I think better joysticks, which has always been complained about, a little bit better resolution on the monitor, better sound in the case of arcade with some JBL support. Both of those units are going to be roughly around $1,000, which I think is kind of a lateral move. I mean, you're basically starting to price yourself out of the regular consumer marketplace, and you're going after someone who really wants to go ahead and have something specialty. But I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. I mean, someone who just told me before we went on the air loves to play a lot of video games, and having something like that, spending $1,000 on an arcade machine really is going to be for a niche audience, I think.
It is, and when what I find interesting about when you start to get into those niche audiences, we know a thing or two about that with you have the world. Let's just compare it for a second to the world of tabletop RPGs, right? You
Yeah.
have Dungeons and Dragons, which is huge, right? But also at the same time very niche, if you're going to do anything like a podcast or something like that with it, right? And then you take that and you boil it down again, and you get down to the world of darkness, which is where Vampires and Vitae lives with Vampire the Masquerade. That's an even more niche audience. But what I have found has been interesting is it is a smaller audience, but it's consistently there. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of fall off when you have those very specific, I believe the term is like a psychographic of the people that you want to attract to your product and to your uh yeah, to your product anyway. What I think is going to happen with this is people are going to make it, there're going to be a lot of people who get this for Christmas. There are going to be a lot of people who get this for a big anniversary or a big celebration or something like that. Perhaps a retirement thing. But would Rob and I go out and buy an arcade machine that cost us $1,000? Probably not, because we have way more places to put $1,000. I would stay with like the version that you have, which would make way more sense for us to have than, the premium or premiere series for that kind of stuff.
And if you're going to spend that much on a premier series, there are dozens of smaller companies, mom and pop companies, and I'm going to
Yeah.
tell this out because they advertise freely out there that if you want to spend 1,000, $1,500 or $2,000, you will get maybe a better built cabinet that will have or hold thousands of games on it, as
Yeah.
opposed to just 2, 3, or 4, or one, and then you can go ahead and buy a few more with each one.
Yeah.
There are I don't say mom and pop, but there are small companies out there that you can find on the internet that actually will have that will sell you custom machines starting at around $1,000 already.
Yeah.
I understand that Arcade One Up and iArcade are trying to cut into that marketplace, but to me, the prospect of being able to go ahead and, if I'm spending that much, I want a lot of games to come with it already.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and that to me is the big thing about that. And I think that's something I think they're both kind of gambling that you're not going to go ahead and delve into much. So I'm really think this is a risky prospect for both. I was disappointed in the fact that we didn't see any more real IPs, new IPs that are announced for regular consumer titles out there, because that's their bread and butter. I think that they should still continuously go out and find arcade titles from the past that they need to go ahead and still get. I was always mentioning the WWF arcade games from the 80s and 90s that they need to go
Yes.
ahead and grab. And there's still quite a few more that they have. All they're doing right now is just rehashing Pac-Mans and centipedes, and then they do different Mortal Kombats, and they do, they're just recycling on these new units that they're announcing different versions of the IPs that they already have rights to when it concerns Arcade One Up. And with IR Arcade, they're still so small that they still can't put as much money into going ahead and acquiring all the same amount of IPs that Arcade One Up has. So it was interesting to see that the dichotomy between both at CES and what they announced, and how they were so alike and so different all in the same breath. But yeah, just wanted to go ahead and mention that. I also want to go ahead and mention something that you were really into as far as is concerned, and that was the Concept Nyx.
Oh man.
Is it a Nyx? I think it's a Concept Nyx, NYX. Came out, and basically, it's a big unit, looks like a big tower PC, but it actually, what it does is it allows you from any room in the house for as many players as you want, all playing different games simultaneously off of one unit. And you saw this and you were just floored. It's a concept right now from Alienware, but it's something that I would be very excited about if it comes to pass.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I don't have a lot, Gerald, but what I do have, I am more than happy to put up as a like a down payment on one of these things for whatever they come out. Like
I'll let Alienware know.
Yeah, I have 3 ring lights that I'm willing to donate to whatever project they're working on to make this thing happen. I need to have this in my life, because Rob and I were just talking the other night about we've been playing through Diablo 3 again. And I was like, it's going to be really tough when Diablo 4 comes out, because we're going to be fighting over who gets to play. And then he was like, no, because we have a second unit here on loan from a friend of ours. And he was like, we'll just set that up with another TV, and then we'll be able to game together. And I was like, yeah, but why isn't there just something that allows you to take a 1-player game when you're in the same house and make it a 2-player? Well, this is the answer. This is the thing.
Yeah.
Right? I'm
absolutely.
So excited. I cannot wait. This is my answer. Come on.
Well, I'm hoping it does come to fruition.
Please make it happen.
And please, for Melinda's sake, Alienware, make it happen. Yes.
Gerald, I know you know people. Make it happen.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
A couple other things I wanted to go ahead and pass among the many things that I was offered. I want to say that I was impressed with the Samsung Freestyle, which will be coming out, which is a spotlight. And what it does is around $900 pre-order. But what it can do is, not only is it a smart home speaker, not only is it like having an Alexa, but it's also like allowing you as a projector to project anything as far as from a screen, as far as what you've got, Netflix, Disney Plus, any type of video on any wall in the house, just like a regular projector does, but it does in such high def quality that really is going to go ahead and transform the way you view things, so that maybe the future of television will expand beyond what it is now. So it was something really interesting. A lot of people are really excited for it. Again, it's just a small, round, cylindrical object that, again, just shoots out a projection of whatever it is you want to transmit through it. And I'm really excited for that to come out. And then last but certainly not least, among all the major announcements, because there were dozens and dozens among them that I got in my inbox were regarding, getting the latest in smart toilets, the latest, the stuff that was going on with smart cribs and things like that. When I go ahead and I register, I tell CES exactly what specifically I'm interested in: gaming, audio and video, consumer electronics, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, I know that it's just a waste of my time because I get emails from everyone that's attending the show or not covering anything. And it's just, It's ridiculous. Again, robotics, things of that nature that were just so wild and crazy stuff. And like I said, I got smart toilets and I've got,
tell me more about those. Because what?
The smart pillows, things of that nature. Just smart toilets that'll know exactly what's going on. That's even more advanced than what you see now, as far as if you're going number one or if you're going number two.
Sure. I mean, does it perform tests? Does it tell me what my health status is every day? I don't.
There are those. Actually, I did get objects that do. It got apps. I got emails for apps that actually will have a lot. That will give you a lot of readouts on various things that are even beyond what we see on most health apps now. So it was nice to see. But the last thing I want to cover is PSVR 2. Yes. PlayStation's VR 2 was announced officially, something everybody knew that was happening. It had to be an updated version of PlayStation VR. They are the best-selling VR unit that's out there. They've sold several million units as well of this. And they presented PSVR 2 as something that's going to be that's going to have less cords, going to have a higher definition, better sound, better controls. You won't use those old PlayStation Move controllers. It'll have your own separate controllers that are a little bit more functional. Did showcase a little blip of the Horizon VR game that's going to be an offshoot of Horizon Forbidden West. So that's going to be something that a lot of people want to check out because, yes, it is coming out supposedly later this year. And it's supposed to only work with the PlayStation 5. So you will no longer, PlayStation 4 owners, be able to have access to PSVR 2 if that's the case. So very interesting to see. But anything that stuck out to you in this year's CES before we head to the break?
Just the concept, do everything everywhere in your house. I want that.
There was a lot of that. There was a lot of smart home controls as far as whether you take a tablet and just controls everything in your house.
Yes. Oh, that's great stuff. I mean, it's also a little bit terrifying because we all know that computers sometimes have a little bit of a mind of their own. I can't imagine just giving my house over to AI, but
Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's going to be taking over anytime soon. So
before you know it, right?
Yes, absolutely, indeed. It'll be the Terminator all over again. But just a lot of interesting things to see. And again, you can go ahead and check out many of the articles that I posted this week at Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook. A lot of the press releases, a lot of the information, a lot of the articles that are there covering this week at CES. So if you're interested, check it out. Plus, also, if you have any questions for me or thoughts on CES that you were interested in, maybe the smart pillow, maybe the smart toilet, who knows? Anything that piqued your interest, please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, coming up after the break, it's Marcus de la Garza. He's going to be talking about The Expanse, Season 6. It's almost wrapped up. It's finale season. But is that all for the universe of The Expanse? And has Marcus enjoyed his time so far with the final season of The Expanse on Amazon Prime? That's coming up after the break. And then Melinda and I will be on the back end of the show talking about Netflix's successes, the successes of Netflix right now for Cobra Kai and Don't Look Up. This is the PC Multiverse. And we're back with the show. It's the PC Multiverse. Want to thank so much Marcus de la Garza for being on the program today. But before we head on out, Melinda, Netflix. The world seems to rotate around Netflix.
It does, right? How does that happen? And how do you go from mailing out DVDs to the Goliath that Netflix is now? It's crazy, right?
And offering yourself to Blockbuster to be sold to Blockbuster, getting turned down, and then becoming this big behemoth.
Right, yeah. Whoops.
Well, that's why when we talk about the streaming wars and the streaming outlets out there, I get so mad when I talk Hulu. You know, Hulu's trying to do, it has its little successes and whatnot, but I see it still at the end of the year when they report on it, still in the 30s or 40 million as far as subscribers. And I see with, as far as Crackle still alive in some form or fashion. But Hulu and Crackle, they had the jump on everyone. They were there from the get-go and actually could have been that next Netflix. Amazon Prime could have been the dominant factor on Netflix because they always had this video section for years and years, and they just never really cared about it.
Yeah.
So it's, more props to Netflix on that. And, why are we lauding Netflix so much? Because they have the most viewers by far. And one of the things that they do is they promote the stuff. They spend the money on projects like this, a lot of projects that are out there, and they've got a lot of good stuff. I mean, The Lost Daughter is doing well on Netflix. You obviously have Red Notice that's done a tremendous job. Their number one movie right now is Don't Look Up, which is the number one entity on Netflix. In the past week, 150 million people have been 150 million hours have been watched around the world, as far as what last week is concerned. So that's a great number and it's maybe on its way becoming to one of the most popular, if not the most popular movie, surpassing Red Notice. So the movies that they introduce out now, they have a chance to go number one each and every time out, because this Netflix is just getting it bigger and bigger. And special props to Cobra Kai, because they're the number one television show.
Yes.
With over 120 million hours watched. And they've gotten a renewal for season 5 that was announced this week. They're so excited for that. I thought it was good. I thought the back end of the episodes were really good. I thought it closed down a nice cliffhanger. Took for me a little bit of going through the Melrose Place 90210 style relationship saga stuff on the front end, but I enjoyed the journey at the end, especially, and the twists that were there. But your thoughts on all this stuff on Netflix? I mean, you were talking about how you've got a viewer in the house that just didn't even know she liked Cobra Kai, and all of a sudden she's hooked.
Yeah. So my mother-in-law is a wonderful, lovely older woman, and she decided one day that she was going to sit down and she's going to rewatch the Godfather movies. No, they're not on Netflix, but so she watches the first 2, and she's like, I just need something a little bit lighter. So she puts on Cobra Kai. It was 3:00 in the morning before she got some sleep, because she just binged it. And now that's all that's on our TV for the majority of the day. It's crazy. She bought into it. Don't know that she bought into it, but it has definitely caught her, and it's got her in her Cobra Kai net. And she is not getting out of it. She is perfectly happy to be watching that show.
Well, I've reaped the praises now for years about this show, even when it was on YouTube, and it was one of the YouTube original shows that they had. And I think YouTube is now kicking itself in the foot for letting go this original shows in the first place. They had a good thing going. And they decided to discontinue all their original shows altogether. And Sony, who actually produces this, decided to go ahead. Okay, we'll make a deal with Netflix. And wouldn't you know, they've reaped a lot of fortune on Netflix. And now the series is more popular than ever. It's amazing to see where this has come from. Again, I've never been a fan of the Karate Kid series, but this came out and this rocked my world when I first started watching it. Yeah. And I think, again, I could read the praises on just all the William Zabka, Ralph Macchio, obviously everything going on with the evil villains and Kreese and Terry Silver. They brought characters in there. I didn't even care about Terry Silver because it was in a movie that really was bad and nobody really cared about, Karate Kid Part 3.
Right.
And the series does such a good job of making you care about these individuals, these side characters that nobody really cared about. And now all of a sudden you do.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's about 8 different directions that I want to go from here.
Let's go for it.
Okay. So one of them is not directly Cobra Kai related, but it just the smartitude. I guess I'm making a word and it's going to fit in this conversation of Netflix. When Disney said, you know what, we're going to take all of our stuff. We're going to start our own streaming service. Netflix was like, cool. Don't worry about it. Thanks for all of the fun. And they went and they just got a whole bunch of anime. And then they found the Tiger King. They put the Tiger King on just as the world shut down. Then they hurried and they got a whole bunch of anime dubbed and put that on Netflix. If Netflix isn't one of the reasons why anime is so much more mainstream right now, I would be shocked. Shocked, I tell you, if that wasn't one of the answers that people were like, no, I just found this stuff on Netflix and loved it. So smartitude, Netflix. I like it.
Smartitude, indeed. But you see now, because of how well anime has done on Netflix, you're seeing a whole lot of people that are now interested in, or a whole lot of companies now interested in getting into anime. And AMC just bought the anime streaming service High Dive.
Yeah.
And they spent a ton of money on that. So now they're getting into the mix because of what they saw with the success of Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix has overcome all the stuff, like you said, when Disney pulled out, when the Marvel stuff as far as stopped showing on their screens, when The Office, which was their backbone of their growth, their early growth, The Office was the backbone. When that left their streaming service, they each and every time have been able to recover and thrive with their own original programming from it. And it's just been amazing to see how they've been able to do. And I give all the props to Netflix. You know, I wasn't so high on Netflix over the course of the time, but I have grown to appreciate the brilliance of Netflix. Like you said, smartitude indeed, because it is something that everybody has to go ahead and pay homage to. Some people still like, oh, Netflix, it's a behemoth, you know, because there are people out there that just don't like something that is a true success story and becomes a huge success story. But you got to hand it to them. They have done what everybody asks these streaming entities to do, and they throw content, whether you like it or you don't like it. They throw a lot of fresh, new content along with a lot of older, repeated content that still people love to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyway, good for Netflix. Okay, so that was one thing that I wanted to say. Another thing was was I watching it, or was it somebody talking about it? Or was I reading it? Can't remember. It doesn't matter. The point is they were talking specifically about the Karate Kid and Cobra Kai. They were talking about how traumatizing it would have been as a kid who had spent all of this time in dojos learning and being disciplined, and you're up for, you know, the the big match, and it's some kid who just walked in like 6 months ago and decided he was going to learn, and then he comes onto the mat and he kicks your butt. How is that kid not the villain of the story? How is it the kid who's been training for years and years and years?
Well, spoilers to everybody out there. Season 1, who was the real villain of season 1?
Right.
Ralph Macchio.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Danny, you know, who he plays on the show.
Yeah.
He was the villain, and William Zabka, who was the villain, Johnny Lawrence, in the movies.
Right.
Total flip as far as it's concerned from what you knew. That's why I really started to like this show. It's because it took everything I know and didn't appreciate and didn't care for and turned it on its head and made me appreciate it for what it was. So they've done a great job. Again, over 120 million hours viewed last week. Just a sensational job, overtaking The Witcher. And then, like I said, Don't Look Up, which is on its way to becoming one of the most popular Netflix movies of all time. Whether you like its stance on, you know, the environment and the destruction and things of that nature of the earth, and you know, I know a lot of scientists are like scratching their head, what is this movie doing? And a lot of critics are, you know, on different sides of the spectrum in regards to this movie, but it does make a statement. People are watching it, and again, that's really, with this all-star cast, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and you know, it's satire. And some people like that, some people don't like that. And I'm just a little bit concerned that the satire might be a little bit too relatable currently. Because of that, I haven't watched it yet, because when I do a lot of my TV watching like at bedtime. So I haven't managed to do that yet, but I do know there is one day next week, Gerald. There's one day where I have the house to myself and I don't have any gaming stuff to do. There's one day next week. I'm going to dedicate that to getting caught up on a lot of these shows, because holy smokes.
Yeah. Holy smokes, indeed. Okay, so when you're watching, like you said, when you're catching up in bed, you know, hey, Robbie, look.
Oh
Does that
yeah.
happen a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. And it has actually made horror movies a little bit more scary.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
but it's just every once in a while he does this really sharp inhale, and it always happened when something terrifying was happening.
Oh my gosh.
Bless his heart.
I've got a similar story, but I'll just leave it at that. Yeah,
Okay, fair enough.
in our household, but that is the crazy households of the Rosses and the Glassfords in regards to Netflix watching.
Right.
But if you have any thoughts on Don't Look Up, and also as well Cobra Kai, strike fast, strike hard, no mercy with Cobra Kai. They're both the #1 TV show and #1 movie on Netflix. Are you really liking what you're seeing from both? Did you get a chance to catch it? Because if you got Netflix, I'm pretty sure you did. Please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. My friend, it's been a great episode. I guess I've been entertaining you, Melinda, because you've been laughing throughout.
I'm not gonna lie, I just laughed so hard I fogged up my glasses.
Oh, there you go. Hey, pat myself on the back for that one, Gerald. There you go. There you go, Dean. But
Well done.
any last thoughts before we head on out?
Yeah, just make your phone call to the Alienware people and get that concept thing going, would you?
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Right.
If I do get a hold of someone with Alienware, and I go ahead and I talk about that with them, I'm going to mention that. Yeah, I might actually have you on with me.
Oh
So
my
you go
gosh.
ahead. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Because you're going to be like, okay, Alienware, give it up.
Yeah,
Give it up.
I volunteer as tribute. I will test all of your stuff.
There you go.
I got you.
There, she's got you, Alienware. She's got
Yep.
you right there for you. All right, there you go. Testing out that products for you. There you go for Alienware. But it's been a great episode. Cannot thank everyone enough for joining us this weekend. I'm hoping I can get on our good friend from Australia, Ben Arnaud, to sit in the hot seat. I'm trying to also get Robbie Ross to go ahead and sit in the hot seat as well. So
It's
let
getting
me
him
know.
to sit down. That's the problem.
Okay. Well, you would know more about that than I would. So,
Yeah. Can't
okay.
keep him still, but I will
right.
do my best.
All
I will
right, but we're
look at his schedule and let you know.
okay, and that's for the Pop Culture Cosmos because again, Josh, our good friend, is still out on paternity leave. I'm hoping everything is okay with him and the family. I know he's got a beautiful young one that's on the way, so I'm wishing him continued health and happiness for the entire family, and also
Absolutely.
continued health and happiness for every one of our listeners and viewers out there. We truly appreciate you following us and watching us. We're heard on over 50 radio stations worldwide, and we cannot thank you enough because you are every bit a part of the Pop Culture Cosmos as well. And I fogged up her glasses way too much.
I'm so emotional. It was beautiful.
So for Melinda Barkhouse Ross, the emotional Melinda Barkhouse Ross, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great